My 20-year-old brother Mark, having been dating 22-year-old Jane for a year, was confronted with her passive-aggressive and sarcastic nature. Her behavior was the reason our family tried to keep her at some distance. Her attitude was especially pronounced when she expressed her displeasure with our mom. Our mom accepted our little sister's autism and did not force her to eat by force. Moreover, she allowed our sister to read at the table for comfort. Such actions provoked the anger of Jane, who did not spare Mom in her rebuke. Another incident occurred when Mom supported Mark in his decision to get a tattoo, for which he had been saving up for several years. Jane, in turn, complained to her mom about Mark's embezzlement and his decision to sign up for a tattoo session. She stated that she no longer tolerated such emotional intrusion and suggested family therapy, claiming that the existing relationships in the family made her uncomfortable. Jane continued to make sarcastic remarks, particularly to her mother, showing a lack of respect for almost everyone but herself. She was not invited to Christmas this year, but the situation with Mark remains uncertain. A few days ago, Jane reached out to me as her mom had blocked her. She said she was 3 months pregnant and started a conversation about family relationships that turned out to be quite long and filled with various statements. She then inquired as to why everyone liked me so much. Out of surprise, I laughed and asked if she was serious. There was no response. Instead, she just said that she would call me when I was ready to grow up and immediately disconnected. This story I shared with my mom, who took my side. However, Mark, my brother, resented me for laughing at Jane's question and was also angry at my mom for her support. Mom advised Mark to talk to Jane about her inappropriate comments and expects her to apologize. Meanwhile, Mark refuses to talk to me and Jane has blocked my number. I realize it was stupid to make fun of the situation with my brother's girlfriend. Regarding the tattoo, it has nothing to do with our mom. It's a picture of an octopus on her arm that my brother came up with. He is passionate about art and dreams of becoming a tattoo artist. That's the reason Jane blocked me. Think about how lucky you are to be in this situation. It's not your fault. It seems that Jane continued to disrespect your family. Your laughter could have been a reaction to the hidden irony of her question about why no one likes her despite her behavior. Apparently, she doesn't understand the reasons herself, unless of course you consider the possibility that her memory has been erased. Narcissists like her see nothing wrong with her words. In her eyes, the fault lies with your family for not living up to her expectations. I am truly sorry that your brother is so immersed in her manipulations that he doesn't see all the venom she pours out on you. She uses manipulation and control, and I hope your brother can recognize that and protect himself and his future offspring. Jane is a classic example of someone with narcissistic personality disorder, believing that only her thoughts and opinions matter. Without years of therapy, she won't change. I feel sorry for your brother, as he will have to deal with her for the rest of his life. Your family may want to consider an intervention to convince him to either send her to therapy or keep her and fight for full custody of the child. Raising a child by someone like her can be detrimental to the child's life. Having been raised by someone like that, I know it's hard. Yes, the poor brother and his child are in a difficult situation, dealing with Jane's attempts to isolate her brother from friends and family. You should have talked to Mark a long time ago about leaving this girl. Now that she is pregnant, the situation can only get worse. You need to pull yourself together and try to rectify the situation before it is too late. As for her attitude towards the child's possible disability, such as autism, the question remains. Therapy is needed, but there is a risk that a manipulative person might use it to improve her manipulation skills. She is already using modern mental health terms as a weapon. It may be difficult to convince your brother of the seriousness of the situation before it is too late. It is important to have a calm and loving conversation with him. By the way, a paternity test may be helpful in this situation to make sure of all the circumstances. Next story. On the threshold of my 50th birthday, at the crossroads of life and death, I am facing the inevitable. My health is failing and I anticipate that I will soon have to seek hospice care. Recently, I was able to secure the opportunity to spend my final months at home surrounded by the care and attention of my husband James. Our union of 3 years of formal marriage and 2 additional years of romantic relationship has proven to be a strong foothold in my life. In our family circle, in addition to my teenage daughter Amy, James has 3 children from previous relationships. Amy, who is actually my niece, became my daughter by heart and documentation when I had to adopt her after the death of her father and the incarceration of my sister. Amy will be old enough before my sister can count on the possibility of parole. In my heart, Amy had become my real daughter, and I hoped that James could be a real father figure to her, proving that soul ties are more important than blood ties. Early on in our acquaintance with James, we considered adoption in an effort to strengthen our family bond. However, as my health began to deteriorate, those plans were put on the back burner. And so, 2 months into my treatment, I was faced with an unpleasant revelation. James had been unfaithful to me, having had a one-night affair with a coworker 4 years earlier, during our period of temporary estrangement. That incident, justified by his state of alcohol intoxication, had left a deep scar on my heart. The situation was complicated by the fact that this woman, after a long silence, decided to contact me and expose his act. Since I found out about the affair, our lives have been filled with heavy reflection and therapy sessions. James assures me that he has remained faithful since that incident, and I want to believe him. However, in the back of my mind, I still have doubts. James has been persistent in asking me not to go through with the divorce, begging me to give him a chance to care for me and support me through health insurance. At the same time, his thoughts are centered on the possibility of adopting Amy, a question I believe he is weighing with great seriousness. My musings, however, revolve inexorably around his one-time infidelity. I can't escape the thought that before it happened, there was probably a flirtatious relationship between him and a coworker. After all, he was the one in the relationship, and he should have controlled his impulses and shown respect to me as his partner. This act tells me a lot more about his character than I would like it to. I feel that his regret during our conversations is not as deep as it should be. James claims that he loves Amy and realizes his mistake. He admits that he cheated, which makes him a cheater, but insists that it doesn't take away his desire to care for Amy's well-being. He says he is willing to accept any punishment regarding our marriage, but argues that divorce will punish Amy, not him, especially since I will no longer be around. I've talked to an attorney considering divorce because if I stayed healthy, that would probably be my first step. Insecurity overwhelms me at the thought of having to deal with an unfaithful spouse. James' actions make me worry about whether he will be able to restrain his impulses in the future and not let them interfere with his sanity. Doubts gnaw at me as to whether this will cause him to allow someone into his life who is not suitable for a long-term relationship just to fulfill a need for intimacy. James is distraught and reminds me of my family situation. My parents have passed away and the only relative I have left is living on welfare, raising 5 children. I am considering reconsidering my decision because my trust in him has been undermined. I think I was wrong to let him stay in my life after all that had happened. He always emphasizes, do it for Amy. If you really want her to be happy, let her be surrounded by people who love her instead of focusing on herself. If you don't see that, it might be worth reconsidering. While you have every right to feel disappointed and resentful about the cheating, it's important to remember to prioritize Amy's well-being. Your trust in his fidelity may have been shattered, but ask yourself, has he given you reason to doubt his concern for Amy, especially when you won't be around? His desire to adopt her speaks volumes. It would be self-righteous to leave her fate to the system. Please try not to let your feelings get the best of you. Act on what's best for Amy. Taking a different path risks leaving your daughter flitting between foster homes where violence and other horrors may await her, rather than allowing someone who genuinely loves her to care for her. Yes, there are good foster homes, but the chance of Amy ending up in one and staying there until adulthood is slim. Not being able to trust him to be faithful should not prevent you from seeing him as a caring father. Even if doubts remain, think about the alternatives. It's an incredibly difficult decision, but your daughter should be at the center of those reflections. Now I want to tell a different story. My home is located in the north where the cold is harsh. Every year I sew small bags for the homeless. I fill these bags with gift cards, warm socks, heating pads, hats, and ski masks, and then go into town to distribute them to those in need. My activities have resonated in the community. Many people know me because of my efforts. I also support homeless shelters by providing them with bags. Every year, I create them in large numbers. So last weekend, another distribution was organized and it was a success. However, despite my efforts, there were not enough bags this year. As such, I plan to make about 200 more. This week, on Wednesday, an unpleasant incident occurred. My sister-in-law, picking up my child, noticed the bags and noticing the ski masks, questioned whether my actions were contributing to an increase in crime. I explained to her that the masks were for protection from the cold, but she persisted, claiming that my actions could lead to undesirable consequences. This conversation led to a conflict in which she accused me of being involved in a possible increase in crime. In response, I asked her to leave, which only exacerbated the situation. My son also took her side, which caused me deep frustration. In the end, the incident created tension in the family. My daughter-in-law is demanding an apology and threatening not to come for the upcoming holidays if her conditions are not met. This has made me think about how my actions and initiatives are perceived by others and the difficulty of understanding even with loved ones. Forgive me, but what crimes? The only thing that keeps some people from committing crimes is a lack of resources, such as the ski mask you suggest they have. Their thinking seems absurd. If a person decides to commit a crime, they will find a way to do it, regardless of the availability of a mask. You continue to help those in need. You are doing a good deed and should not be berating yourself. It may be worth discussing with her that you can no longer babysit. This may make her reconsider her habits without making her lazier. Suggesting that she not wear tennis sneakers so she doesn't run a marathon or avoid large bags so she doesn't look like a potential thief sounds absurd. Advising her not to carry knives for fear that she might hurt someone also doesn't make sense. Don't apologize for your boldness and desire to be a blessing to the community. Your sister-in-law may not realize the significance of your actions until she herself or her children are in a similar situation. Then she will probably regret her words. It's important for spouses to support each other, but that doesn't mean they should always agree with all of each other's opinions. Time spent with a caring and loving person is not time lost. My wife demonstrates true kindness by helping others here in Canada. Many people do not know how difficult it is to survive a cold winter night without shelter in -30 degrees. Your efforts to help the homeless and needy deserve only respect. You are helping them enjoy a peaceful Christmas, far from ignorant judgments. My next story. I am 44 years old, as is my husband. During the 15 years of our marriage, we have raised 3 children, a grammar school student and 2 teenagers. Both of us have stable jobs, so we are not familiar with financial difficulties. However, the problem is not in finances. My husband prefers outdoor activities and is often busy with his hobbies. This causes arguments as he tends to hide his real plans from me or his superiors. There have been times when he claimed he was going on a business trip, when in fact he was going skiing. 3 weeks ago, on my birthday, he reported a work emergency. I celebrated alone with the kids, later finding out that he preferred the pool to our company. This made me sad, but I tried not to show it, happy to be celebrating with our kids. One Monday, he told me he had taken 3 days off for a ski vacation, although he claimed the decision was spontaneous. I knew he had planned it in advance without committing me to his plans. My husband claimed that because he was overworked at work, he needed a vacation. A family ski vacation is scheduled in 10 days when the kids are on school vacation. It seems to me that he is looking for an opportunity to get away from the family. I made a condition: if he goes alone, it will be the end of our marriage. My disappointment reached a breaking point when he planned a trip right after my unfortunate birthday party. It was expected that he would seek to improve our communication, but instead he canceled his plans. His reaction to my silence became rage. He does not seek to prove to me the inappropriateness of his staying at home, claiming that he could devote that time to work since his absence from work is not critical. He accuses me of allegedly pushing him into this decision out of revenge, believing me to be reckless for forcing him to give up his favorite activity. He usually devotes about 20 hours a week to his hobbies. When we have constructive dialogue regarding his hobbies, there is no problem with solo trips, although he might wish for more. I am convinced that cheating is not an issue. It is not a concern of mine. Your marital problems run deeper than meets the eye, and they are not limited to the canceled ski trip. Your relationship seems to be on the verge of a major crisis, perhaps even divorce. In all likelihood, it's time to seek professional counseling to sort out your relationship, as the current situation seems devoid of mutual love and health. Manifestations of discontent, such as ignoring important dates, canceling important plans for revenge motives, are not signs of a harmonious union. Apparently, the time for marriage counseling is long past, due before the relationship has reached such a point of toxicity that it has become seemingly impossible to fix. Sometimes, maybe the solution is time apart, especially when vacation views differ dramatically. Leaving your partner alone with the kids on such an important day, choosing instead to pursue personal hobbies, seems odd to say the least. The question arises as to how sincere such solo trips are and whether he is accompanied by someone else, which would only confirm his selfish nature. A situation where everything seems to revolve solely around one person makes you wonder about the essence of your relationship and what is left in it for you. It sounds like you're striving to hold on to the image of the perfect family, but it's important to realize that it's probably not just you who is feeling rejected, but your children as well. Don't make the mistake of thinking that all issues are only about them. When thinking about possible infidelity, this behavior may be typical of self-centered personalities, but this is just the tip of the iceberg of issues that need to be looked at more closely by rereading your experiences and trying to see the whole picture. A story that really surprised me. My love for my wife is undeniable. However, I am faced with a difficult situation. The problem lies in her behavior at my work events. Striving for success at work, I regularly participate in various meetings and gatherings. At the same time, my wife, who prefers privacy and working from home, has difficulty communicating with coworkers and associates. Mutual understanding is important in any relationship, including professional aspects of life. Sometimes, socializing with unloved people becomes an inevitability. In the past, I have had to remind her of the need for appropriate appearance and behavior when participating in an event. Despite entreaties, her actions remained casual and far from the accepted norms of etiquette. Showing basic manners and participating in conversations at the table were replaced by a preoccupation with her own cell phone. This caused bewilderment among my colleagues and embarrassed me. Apologizing for her, I tried to smooth the way. Arguing about her behavior only deepened the disagreement between us. When I informed her of my decision to attend the next event alone, I was met with incomprehension and questions about the reasons for my decision. Explanations only added fuel to the argument because in her eyes the problem seemed different. Thus, the situation evolved into a difficult dialogue about mutual expectations and understanding the need to support each other, even if it requires stepping out of your comfort zone. Your frustration with the situation is understandable, but it's worth considering that each of us is unique. As an introvert, I know how difficult it can be to participate in noisy company celebrations. Your wife doesn't seem to have found common ground with such events, showing her frustration openly. Trying to reconcile with her preferences without demanding changes shows your willingness to compromise. However, her reactions, filled with questions and drama, may indicate a lack of understanding or unwillingness to accept your point of view. This behavior may be indicative of her desire to stay together with you, regardless of the circumstances. You describe her as having difficulty with social interactions, possibly due to neurodivergent behavior. This emphasizes her efforts to be close to you and participate in life despite her personal difficulties. Your decision not to invite her to the event, fearing for your own career, could be perceived as a lack of support. Instead, you could explain to coworkers about her tendency to be shy and insecure about socializing, which could help mitigate the situation. Criticism of introverts presenting themselves inappropriately in social situations is not always warranted. It's important to remember that everyone has different ways of communicating and perceiving the world around them. Your wife, despite her difficulties, is trying to find ways to communicate, which requires understanding and patience. In conclusion, accusations against others can often be reframed through the lens of one's own experiences and understanding. However, it is important to strive for open dialogue in order to find common ground and support each other in any situation.